Ever feel like you're living in a movie? You know that feeling like you're just playing a part? Well, today we're diving into a case where someone actually believes it. Yeah, we've got this file, caselyonelnumb.txt, and it's wild. It's a psychiatric case file, a real one, about this patient who calls himself, get this, the boss. And he's convinced he's like a comic book supervillain. Not kidding.
It's a fascinating look, really, at how these delusions they can take hold,
Yeah.
and the danger they pose, not just to the person themselves, but to
Yeah.
everyone around them.
It's kind of scary when you think about it. Okay, so the boss guy, the psychiatrist, Dr. H. Tohumps, he describes him as totally obsessed with being the center of attention, even if it means doing things that are, well, dangerous, reckless even. Like, he wants to be that dramatic, over-the-top comic book villain.
Wow.
Consequences? What consequences?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. The spectacle, it's everything to him.
Yeah.
Substance, the real world, it all fades away. He's living for the moment, for the page he's on, with no thought for the fallout.
So he's like blowing up Gotham City 1 minute, and in the next panel, it's like nothing happened.
Precisely. No consequences, just on to the next crazy scheme. The delusion, it warps everything.
And it gets weirder. Hold on to your hats, folks, because Dr. Tohum says this boss character, he admires guys like Putin and fictional baddies. He's all about the Joker, no interest in heroes.
It's classic, actually. It's all about narcissism, right? This delusion, it feeds this belief that he's the star, the big bad villain in his own twisted story.
So the worse he is, the more evil he does. It just makes his story better, even if people are getting hurt in the real world.
In his mind, yeah, the delusion, it distorts everything. Values, consequences, it all gets twisted up.
It's like he's totally checked out of reality, you know? Like when you get lost in a video game and the lines get blurry.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but with this guy, with the boss, it's not a game, it's constant, it's his reality, and that's what makes it so dangerous, because he really believes he's this supervillain, living by a whole different rule book.
And that rule book being, what, the rules of a comic book? Where death is meaningless
Yeah.
and there's no real consequences.
Bingo, and it gets scary, really scary. Dr. Tollums, in the file, he uses this phrase, he calls these patients, these guys, like the boss, he calls them, get this, ticking time bombs.
Oh, wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
But I can see why, right? If he's so deep in this fantasy, he could easily just snap and do something really awful.
And that's the danger here, right? He's looking for that big moment, that shocking panel in the comic, even if it means hurting real people.
So even something truly horrible, like poisoning Gotham's water supply, that's just another plot point to him, right? Another way to be the most memorable villain.
Yeah, he's got this need, to be bigger, badder, and the chaos, it fuels that. It feeds into his delusion, makes him think he's this legend, this larger-than-life figure. And get this, he even romanticizes the idea of getting caught, being imprisoned.
Wow.
It's all part of the story to him.
It's like he's always putting on a show, playing to an audience in his head.
And that's part of it too, right? This need for attention, for validation. It's all part of the narcissism that's driving this whole delusion. He doesn't just want to be a villain. He wants the world to see him that way.
It's really freaky when you think about how this could play out in the real world, like with real consequences and everything. So how do you treat someone like that, someone who's so far gone?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this is where it gets really tricky. Dr. Tohums, he's a big believer in institutionalization in cases like this, and not just to protect everyone else, though obviously that's a huge part of it.
So you're saying sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone like that is to kind of take away their freedom for their own good and for everyone else's safety.
It's a tough pill to swallow, for sure. But yeah, sometimes that's the best option. In a controlled environment, you can start to address the underlying issues, give them the help they need, without the constant temptation to, act out these fantasies in a way that could hurt themselves or others.
So it's like, I don't know, like hitting pause on their little comic book world, right? Give them a chance to breathe, maybe see things a little differently.
Right, exactly. You take away the distractions, the triggers, and you can start to rebuild,
Yeah.
Create a space where they can heal, where they're safe, and everyone else is safe too.
It's a tough one, though, isn't it? Trying to find that balance between, like, someone's freedom and their well-being.
It's one of the toughest things we grapple with in this field. Mental health, it's not black and white. There's so much gray area, But in these extreme cases, you have to prioritize. You have to think about the safety of the individual, yeah, but also society as a whole.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. This whole deep dive, this boss and his comic book delusion, it really makes you think
It does, doesn't it?
about how powerful our minds are, how we can create these whole realities for ourselves. And the line between imagination and, well, delusion, it can get pretty blurry.
And we all do it to some extent, don't we?
Hmm.
Create narratives about ourselves, the roles we play.
Right, like we're all the heroes of our own stories or something like that. But what happens when someone's story takes a dark turn? When they decide they want to be the villain? I don't know, it makes you think.
It reminds us that mental health, it's not some abstract concept. It's real, it's powerful, and it affects all of us, whether we realize it or not.
Well said. Well, folks, there you have it. Another deep dive into the dark side of the human psyche. We've explored the world of delusion, the allure of villainy, and the incredibly complex ethical dilemmas of mental health. It's been a heavy one, that's for sure. But hey, sometimes you got to face the darkness to appreciate the light, right? Until next time, keep those minds open and those imaginations in check. And remember, the stories we tell ourselves, they matter. Choose yours wisely.